They laughed at her fruit stall, not knowing she owned the entire mall. In Lagos, secrets travel slowly, until destiny speaks louder than pride. Every morning, Mama Ijoma sat beneath the blazing sun. She arranged her mangoes like gold, and her oranges like hope. Behind her rose a towering mall. It shone like a world she could never reach. She sold fruit to feed herself, yet her eyes carried the calm of a woman who had seen storms and survived them. One hot afternoon, a black car stopped in front of the mall. From it stepped a man in a tailored suit, her only son, Toby. She smiled with joy. "My son," she called softly, but he froze, glancing around. "Mama, please." "Not here," he muttered, embarrassed by the crowd. He walked away quickly. Her smile lingered for a moment, then faded into silence. For years she had sacrificed everything for that boy. Her wrappers, her jewelry, her sleep. She sold fruit so he could wear shoes. And now, the son who once begged her for school fees pretended not to know her. The other traders whispered, "Isn't that her child? The rich one who acts like he fell from heaven?" She said nothing. She wiped her eyes and whispered, "God, remember me." Days later, she collapsed beside her stall. When they rushed her to the clinic, the doctor shook his head. "Madam, your blood pressure is too high. You must rest." She smiled faintly. "Doctor, can rest fill an empty pot?" The nurse asked if she had family to call. She looked away and said quietly, "Everyone has family. Not everyone is called family." When she returned to the market, a notice was waiting for her. "Eviction," it read. The mall no longer allowed vendors outside the gates. A security guard told her to leave within 24 hours. She pleaded, "I've sold fruit here 15 years. But the woman in charge said, "Madam, Lagos is changing. Go and change with it." That night, Mama Ijoma sat alone in her one-room house. She opened an old iron trunk and found a brown envelope. It was the one her late husband had given her decades ago. Inside were papers she never understood, stamped and signed, and a faded photograph of her husband standing beside the white man who once owned the mall. She touched the picture and whispered, "You said one day these papers would mean something. Is that day today?" The next morning she took the papers to a lawyer, Barrister Okan. He adjusted his glasses, read carefully, and gasped. "Madam, do you know what these are?" She shook her head. "These are ownership documents," he said. "Your husband was given shares in the company that built this mall. You, Mama Ijoma, are the legal majority shareholder." She blinked in disbelief. "Me?" she whispered. "Yes," said the lawyer. "And they've been using your property without your consent." For the first time in years, her hands trembled, not from fear, but from power awakening. That same week, the board of directors gathered for a meeting. They spoke about profits and expansion, and how to keep low-class traders away. Suddenly, the doors opened. Barrister Okan walked in with Mama Ijoma beside him. She wore her cleanest wrapper and head tie. He placed the papers on the table. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "meet your new chairperson, the rightful owner of this mall." Silence, then gasps. Even Toby, seated among the executives, went pale. "Mama," he whispered. She looked at him calmly. "You stopped listening long before I had anything worth saying." The lawyer continued. "Effective immediately, all actions taken without her approval are invalid. The eviction of vendors is reversed. An audit begins today." By sunset, the news had spread across the city. The fruit seller owned the mall. Crowds gathered outside, chanting her name. Reporters arrived. Mama Ijoma stood on the steps and spoke through a trembling microphone. "My husband once told me wealth should feed people, not silence them. This mall will now have space for the small trader, the cleaner, the dreamer. No one feeding Lagos should go hungry." Cheers filled the air. For the first time, the same guards who once chased her offered her chairs and water. Later that night, Toby found her sitting quietly at the edge of the plaza. He knelt before her, tears in his eyes. "Mama, I was blind. I wanted to erase where I came from." She placed her palm on his head. Stand, my son. Pride makes us blind, but love can make us see again. Months passed. The mall changed. A new section opened called the People's Market. Neat stalls for local sellers. A scholarship fund for staff children. Free drinking water stands outside. And a mural of a woman selling fruit beneath the mall she owned. On opening day, drums echoed. Dancers twirled. Lights shimmered across the plaza. Mama Ijoma took the microphone once more. "This place is more than business," she said.
"It's a reminder that no life is too small for greatness. The ground you stand on might one day belong to you, if you keep faith and integrity." The crowd cheered. Toby stood proudly beside her, holding her hand. As the drums faded into the Lagos night, the city finally understood. The fruit seller was never poor. She was just waiting for her season. But seasons change, and with every sunrise comes a new storm. Months after her triumph, the mall flourished under her leadership. Vendors smiled. Workers were paid fairly. Even the governor came to shake her hand. The woman who once sold fruit under the sun had become a symbol of grace and justice. But not everyone rejoiced. Greed never sleeps. One evening, a letter arrived at her doorstep. Thick, official, cold. A foreign company claimed ownership of the mall's land. Their documents were forged, their names powerful. They demanded she vacate the property within 30 days. Mama Ijoma's hands trembled as she read. Her son Toby rushed over when he heard the news. "Mama, let me handle this," he said, eyes fierce with guilt and determination. But she looked at him softly. "Toby, I built this with truth. We'll fight it with truth." The days that followed were dark. Lawyers, threats, media lies. Stories twisted her legacy into greed. Some said she forged the documents herself. Others said she stole them all. But through the noise, she remained calm. She sat at her small wooden table, peeling an orange as cameras flashed outside. "I was a fruit seller," she told them. "If I could survive rain and hunger, I can survive lies." Toby, who once hid from her, now stood at her side. He stopped going to clubs, stopped chasing fame. He worked day and night to prove her innocence. He searched old records, visited archives, and traced the men who once worked with his father. One night, he found it. A recording from years ago. His father's voice, faint but clear. "If anything ever happens to me, this land and the mall will belong to my wife, Ijoma. She's the only one I trust." Toby's hands shook as he played it again and again. Tears filled his eyes. For the first time, he realized his mother's love had built not just a home, but his destiny. He presented the recording in court. The judge, moved by the evidence, ruled in her favor. The forged documents were destroyed. The false claimers were exposed. The courtroom erupted in cheers. Mama Ijoma closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you, Lord." Toby fell to his knees beside her, holding her hands tightly. "Mama, I finally protected what you built." She smiled through her tears. "My son, you didn't just protect the mall. You protected your name." Months passed again. Toby changed completely. He managed the business with humility. He treated every worker like family. He built new branches, but each one carried a small fruit stall at its entrance, a reminder of where the story began. People started calling the mall Ohanudo, the market of peace. It became a place of hope, a place where poor women could start small businesses, and children received scholarships in Mama Ijoma's name.